Right, in this video we're going to generate the graph of tan between 0 and 360 for the angle measured in degrees. Now what we've got here again is the unit circle. So this length here is 1 unit, this length here is 1 unit. Now what we have to put on is, if we draw to the circle, and this is one of the reasons why it's called tangent, okay, we have to draw these two tangents in either side onto the unit circle. And then what we do is we remember that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if I move the slider first of all to let's just say 30 degrees. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so here we've got two lines. We've got this line here. So this line here, this length divided by this length is what tan is equal to. This length divided by this length is what tan is equal to. However, if we draw this line so that it just touches the tangent, so we extend the line of the triangle that we had in the previous two graphs, and it touches the tangent, we get this length here. Now this length here is actually equal to the tan of the angle at 30 degrees. Why? Because this length is opposite, and as this is a unit circle, this length here is 1, and opposite over 1 will give me the tan of this angle. So this length here is then corresponding to this point here, and this is how this works. Okay, so in the first quadrant, what happens is as we move through the degrees, okay, it gets bigger and bigger. We can see it even clearer. This length here is the opposite divided by 1, which makes that the tan of the angle. It's the same as this opposite divided by this length here, okay, because it is similar triangles, if you like. So this length here represents the tan of 52.5, okay, and we carry on, okay, and eventually what will happen at 75, we've sort of gone off the scale a little bit. We've still got this point here, we've got this length here, so that counts as here, and here we have gone off the scales. All right, and then what happens at 90 is that we're going to have no distance to divide the opposite by. So we're trying to divide by 0, which is not possible. So this graph goes up here and approaches this line at 90 degrees. This line is called an asymptote. Okay, where it's where the curve gets very close to it but never actually touches it. So at 90, the tan is actually not actually defined. Okay, if we go into the second quadrant, what we've got to remember now is, just move it a little bit further along so we can see. What we've got to remember is that this length here, so this divided by this gives me tan, okay, so that will correspond to this length, but because this adjacent here is negative, in fact of it going up, it will actually go down. So this point here and this point here correspond to this point here on the graph. All right, now the reason being is, if this is a unit circle on the XY axis and this is the origin, this is negative, so therefore this divided by this will give a negative answer. So we really need to consider the negative length here that we have on the tangent, so it will be this one here. Okay, so all the way between 90 and 180, tan is negative. At this particular point here at 180, tangent will be equal to 0, and then we get into the third quadrant. Now in the third quadrant, the opposite side is negative, and also the adjacent side is negative, and a negative divided by a negative gives a positive. So this length here, which would be the negative one, will have to be positive. So we've got this one coming up here, or this one coming up here, and we can see in the third quadrant that this point would correspond to this one here. This length here would be the same as this. So in the third quadrant, because you've got a negative divided by a negative, tangent is positive, and that carries on again. And then we get to that similar sort of situation at 90, where we get no adjacent length, can't divide by 0, so again the curve will approach a line at 217. This line is called an asymptote. If we now carry on into the fourth quadrant, well, in the fourth quadrant, let's move it to there. Okay, we've got a negative opposite but a positive adjacent, which means that this will correspond to the negative length here. All right, so it will definitely be negative because we've got a negative divided by a positive, which is negative. So this length here corresponds with this point here. So that length there is the same as that length there. Okay, and then we get back to 360 again. And there we have the graph of tan, which looks like that. If we just move away the... Sorry, to put that back. So we just move away the dots. Okay, so what we've got here is 90. We've got an asymptote. 270, we've got an asymptote. Then you need to add 180 degrees to get 450. There will be another asymptote. So what happens is the graph, if you follow it through, repeats itself after 180 degrees. Unlike sine and cosine, the graph here repeats itself after 180 degrees. Okay, and its range will be for all values of y, unlike sine and cos, where they're only valid between -1 and 1. So this has been a video to show you how to generate the graph of tan x using in degrees. And I'll remind you the GeoGebra applet I will put in the notes of this video. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've understood. Thank you very much.